Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Iblis Manifestations podcast. It's great to be back after a small break from 2023 into going into 2024. This is definitely going to be an interesting year, I think, for many of us. And if it's not, I think we can at least try to make sure that it's going to be interesting, right? But I'm sure it's not going to let down anyway. As you can see, this is going to be another solo episode. It's been a fucking while since I did any of these. Just a heads up that I'll probably be swearing a lot because the topics that I'm going to be covering on this one are going to be very deep and personal. And yeah, this is not going to be difficult subjects for me to talk about. Not necessarily because I enjoy being vulnerable as such, but it's simply because all I have to do is just add some external volume to my own internal dialogue, which goes on in my head 24/7. And yeah, I can't say it's necessarily a pleasant place to be in. However, I think it's one that perhaps there might be some benefit in at least sharing that. Usually that's the whole point of this podcast anyway, right? Before we get into that, first off, I just wanted to say thank you all again for joining me on the first one of the year, really, and just to also let you guys know, in line with the title of this episode, I'm extremely thrilled to be finally publishing Trial by Fire Coaching, which is basically a one-to-one service which I'm offering, which I'll be basically conducting custom-made plans for my clients, which would be obviously you guys, and I offer coaching services for fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and so on. So if you're interested in having me as your coach, then please feel free to get in touch. You can fill in the contact form. That's the link in the description, and yeah, we can get talking from there. But yeah, I'm really excited to finally take this fully out there. I've already had quite a few clients from last year, but this is the first where I am able to truly allocate time in a full-time manner to basically just doing this, alongside, of course, what I'm doing with Trivex and Iblis Manifestations. But yeah, really, really excited to be finally working with you guys and see what we can do. Of course, as you're aware, I've had I would say, a relatively intense shift in my own personal transformation. I do believe that many of you guys have obviously seen this. In case you haven't, basically, some years ago, not too long ago, I'm only talking about maybe 6 years ago at this point, I used to be around 119 kilos. I believe that was the heaviest I got that I actually weighed myself on. It's possible that I was heavier at some point. And basically, this was a point in my life where I was just fucking miserable. I hated everything. I hated myself. I hated the world. I wanted everyone to die, and I wasn't quite aware of why I felt this way. I just knew that I did. I was the epitome of what you would describe as a misanthrope. And I'm sure those of you black metal fans listening to this are already relating, probably. Um, but there had to come a time where basically shit was so harsh that it just wasn't working anymore. Being that fat and out of shape and having such little control over my life was not something that was going to work out any further. Now, of course, there are many steps that have to take place within your own mind before you are able to actually put these things into action. And there's a lot of convincing, there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of thinking, holy shit, can I actually do this? Oh my god, I'm fucking helpless. Because that's really what I felt like at the time. So I really have to take you back to that point. Obviously, I should also add that I no longer feel that way because I fucking did something about it, but that will come later on in the discussion. And yeah, so this was at a time for me where I was basically not really earning much money at that time. I was consistently a dopamine addict in all various different areas, whether it was with food, whether it was with pornography, whether it was with sex or masturbation or I don't know, just everything, and drugs included in that also. I never had an addiction problem as such with that, I wouldn't say anyway. But yeah, that was something that basically I had no control. I had no impulse control, and it was just abusive relationship with everything in my life, trying to drag it into the void, and until the wheels fell off, with no really any real goal, or also not any guidance either. Okay, there was no one there to show me and say, hey, you could be doing better here, but no. And even if they did, I probably wouldn't have listened anyway. So I had to go find out for myself. And obviously, being obsessed with the types of art that we are obsessed with, I almost felt like it was my mission to go into as dark of a place as possible anyway, thinking that the darkness itself was the goal, obviously. Now, I understand that that may seem a little bit vague, but the darkness that I'm talking about is an obsession of darkness, of trying to find wherever there's more misery. I wanted to go there, but it was almost as if I had this shield that would leave me unaffected by that said darkness. And of course, I was very wrong in thinking that. Because in life, whatever it is that you are attracted to, whatever it is that you pull yourself towards, that's exactly where you're going to end up. If you're obsessed with death, the thing that's going to happen is that you will die. And you will see this time and time again from many different people throughout history, whether it's with artists or whatever, especially artists, I suppose. And, whatever it is that you feed your attention to, that's exactly the thing that grows. And for me, it was darkness, and boy, it fucking grew. It definitely did, And and the thing for this is that the reason why I actually mention this part is because I know there's a lot of us out there who find comfort in that darkness. I know there's a lot of us out there who find peace in that. But I also want to remind you that that peace is one that stems from comfort. When darkness and shit is all that you know, coming out of that can be a terrifying thing. Okay. And that can be tough for a lot of us. A lot of us feel like, okay, well, I may as well just settle here, when really that's not your truest potential. You could be doing more. You could be achieving more things, or at least finding more depthful part of yourselves, that it's not necessarily limited to just the darkness, but rather that the darkness is simply a tool. I like to think of it as a form of plantation, like you plant the seeds of darkness before life can fully grow out of it and go above the ground. But that doesn't mean that the darkness itself is the point and the focal point of where we're trying to go. At least this is my philosophy of it anyway. I'm sure some of you watching this are probably ready to end your own lives. And of course, I do not recommend that, but that's your choice. But if that's your point, then this conversation is probably not for you. Because the thing that I'm going to talk about is coming out of that darkness and making yourself better. Now, going back to the time that I was spending around, let's say, 2016, 17, parts of 18, and I guess some of the years that came after, this was, there was just, I got to the point where it was very clear to me that I had two choices. Now, I know I've mentioned this before, but it's important to reiterate the fact that at that point, I had the choice of either committing suicide and ending myself, or changing who I was and improving and being better, becoming better. And as hopeless as it felt, I chose the latter. and I decided to act upon it. Now, I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing. I just knew that things had to change, right? So little by little, with a certain shift in mindset and, just trying to look at life a bit differently, I started to make some efforts to do things differently. Now, in October of 2017, right? So that was the first time I actually joined a gym ever. Okay, so it's not like at any point prior to that in my life I was this training person who kind of fell off the wagon. No, I was the kid in school that whenever we were running, I would pretend to tie my shoelace just so I didn't have to fucking run. That's the kind of kid that I was growing up. Okay, I hated sports. I hated sports activities. I detested anyone who partook in things like that. And if I ever saw anyone who was, I don't know, at a gym lifting weights, to me, I would think, fuck you, you egotistical prick. You are just a shallow fucking piece of shit human being, and I don't care about you, and you can all fuck off with your bullshit, vague, and fucking vain life that means nothing. That was my impression. That's exactly what I thought. And then, of course, came a time where I felt like it was necessary for me to actually join the gym. And I gotta say, that was a fucking hard pill to swallow, especially coming from where I came from. But I just knew that something had to give, that I had to change something. And yeah, the very first time I entered the gym, I went on one of the bikes, okay, and I was like slow. I must have taken about 15-20 minutes in the locker room before I actually went out, just because of how terrified and scared I was, and how the whole thing just felt like a giant brain fart to me. I couldn't process. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing this. I'm at a gym. I had no discipline, no structure to my mind, nothing. It was just a mess. And eventually I came out, and I know that I went on one of the bikes, and I did 30 minutes of cardio on that. Not too intense, just 30 minutes of average cardio. And obviously the weight section just seemed terrifying to me, so I didn't even fucking go near it. I just went on the bike. I was like, okay, this is all that I know. This is the best I can do at this time. And I did it. And after 30 minutes, I got off and I went back to the locker room. I sort of laid on my back on one of the benches that they had there. I remember they had these brown benches with 3 lines across them with empty spots in between. And I cried. I cried because I understood how fucking out of shape I was. But, the crying didn't come from a feeling of, wow, I am so tired. No, you know what it came from? It came from a place of thinking, wow, here I am, and the entire world is ahead of me. Here I am sitting here, and I can't even do the simplest of things. The whole world is ahead of me. Everyone is out there enjoying themselves. Everyone is out there training and having friends and family and everything. And I've got nothing. I'm just a guy who left his home country to come here to play black metal. No one at that point cared about my band, and no one was booking us to play shows. My life was a fucking mess. And I was a fat piece of shit. And I had a lot of self-loathing to do, but also a lot of just bitterness that, wow, okay, so this is how far behind I really am from the rest of the world. And I think it was kind of the first time it actually dawned on me. I know the idea of going on a fucking gym bike for 30 minutes might seem extremely mundane, but that's what it took for me to really realize, wow, okay, so this is where we are. It was the reality check that I needed, because I was so out of breath and so fucked up just from doing that, and what it did to my mind, coming out of that comfort zone that I was so trying to fucking hold tight on to. It was a hard thing. But then what I did was I promised myself that I would keep going back. I promised myself that I would keep hammering it in. Even though I didn't really know what I was doing, I made sure that I went. And you know what? I had weeks where I wouldn't go all week because I had no structure. I'd only had like a shitty part time job at that time. And I would only still go once a week, but I still made sure that I went once a week. And I had no proper plan, by the way. Like, I would have saved so much hassle, so much heartache, so much pain if I just got myself a fucking coach, which is what I recommend all of you guys to do. If you haven't got one already, and yeah, this was it was like, I don't know, I was still shooting blanks, but it was the fact that I imprinted that habit within my own mind that I still needed to go. Doesn't matter what, I should still go. And the thing that I started chasing was the fact that I really enjoyed the shower afterwards. So the idea of going in and doing whatever I could to purposely make myself sweat just so I could have a shower. That's the thing that my brain kind of latched onto, and I understood that that was a thing, and then that was a goal in itself. It wasn't to go to the gym to, I don't know, just hit a certain number of reps or whatever. At that time, it was just, let me get a sweat on so I can just jump in the shower afterwards and then feel good. And I noticed how fucking good it felt every time afterwards. And every time I didn't go for like a few days, it felt like shit. And then I realized that prior to joining the gym, I permanently felt like shit. All this talk of depression and anxiety and, oh, you know what, I'm really depressed and woe me. That's where I was at before, and that's where a lot of people across the world are at, by the way. And there's so much that they could do about it. Yeah, sometimes circumstances and things can get in the way, but I have also seen cases of people with circumstances that if I was in their situation, I don't think I would have managed, but they managed. Okay, so never let circumstances fool you. Whatever it is, you can probably do something about it. All right. So anyway, going back to that, I just kept going, kept showing up, and fast forward a year or two later, I haven't made that much of a visible change, but the mental change is fucking off the charts because I'm already like, okay, I've got my life together. At that point, I'm working a better job. And this actually, so we're talking 2019 now. So this actually coincides with the recording of LOA Burns Out. For those of you who've followed Trivex and know the album that we just put out a few months ago. Yeah, so that actually coincided with the recording. And then at that point, I had my shit kind of figured out. I was like, okay, this is dialed in. I've got a routine, and I stopped drinking alcohol for like 9 months, just for the sake of it, and then I quit smoking. And none of this was because anyone asked me to do it. None of this was because there was an incentive. It was simply just because I chose to go down that path. Now, at that same year, I also came to a point where basically a lot of people who were close to me at that time, for a lack of a better word, they were uncomfortable with the level of growth that I was experiencing. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? That can be very much like a self-centered thing, and you could easily play the devil's advocate and say, oh, there's two sides to everything. Sure. Yeah, I like that way of thinking, generally speaking. In this case, it was the case of the one person closest to me at that time would try to almost stop me from doing what I was doing, So let me take a step back here. Let me reel this back and let me explain this kind of scenario to you. You know how a lot of times we're always talking about motivation or getting support from the people around you, or, oh, if someone is down, let's make sure we message them and then say, hey, we're here for you. I was in a position where I was my only anchor in bettering myself. And this was something that I found through the gym, through eating better, through exercising my body, which is actually the same as exercising your mind, believe it or not. The two are extremely connected. And I noticed all these feelings of depression and all this bullshit and everything was just kind of slowly fading away. But just as that was going away, people close to me were trying to say, this is an actual quote told to me by a person very close to me at that time. Shayan, going to the gym all the time is like an addiction. I think you have an addiction problem. And I don't think that's any different to you being addicted to heroin. As soon as I heard that exact quote, I realized that I was not in the wrong, but the person who was near me was uncomfortable because of my growth. Why? Because they were not willing to outgrow their own comfort zone, which, you know what? That's okay. That's gonna fucking happen. That will happen with family members. That will happen with partners, girlfriends, wives. It will happen with people who are as close to you as anyone else. And it'll also happen with probably some people that you don't give a shit about anyway. Nevertheless, that's going to happen. The more you grow, the more people around you try and bring you down. And you know what that means? It's time for those people to go. And they went. Long story short. And that was a tough process also, but I knew within my own heart, after following the process, maybe by like a year and a half, 2 years at that point, 2 years I would say, just around, that this was something that worked for me. This was something that made me a better human being. This was something that did wonders for my mind. So why would I want to walk away from something that stops me from feeling depressed? Why would I want to walk away from something that betters me as a person? Why would I want to walk away from something that makes me enjoy performing music more? Right? And obviously, a lot of these things aren't also traits that you might notice straight away by going to the gym. This takes time. And by listening to the inner philosophical aspect of your mind that sort of develops the more that you do it, that's when you come to understand these things. And then that's where you also find common ground with other people who've gone through the same shit, where they've gone through the shit head forward and gone through difficulties and then came out the other side. You know, there's a valuable thing to take away from that. Now, again, motivation is fucking bullshit. It means absolutely nothing. And it pisses me off, quite frankly, when people say shit like, oh, I don't have the motivation to do that. I have zero sympathy for people with that approach to life in general. Because I was once that person. I was once a person back in 2016, August 2016 in particular. I remember having a conversation with someone who was saying, Shayan, you're right next to the woodlands. You always wanted to be here to go for walks. And my response was, no, don't you know how depressed I'm feeling? Don't you know how anxious I am? I am barely getting through the will to live on a day-to-day basis, and you're telling me to go for a walk in the woods? Not realizing that the only person I was letting down by saying that was myself. That's true. I was only letting myself down by that fucking stupid attitude of victim mentality. And this is why nowadays, when I hear that in other people, listen, there's a degree of perhaps sympathy there, just because I've been there, just because I understand it, but also there's that degree of, you know what, I don't care, because you could be changing that. Whatever your circumstances are, you could do something about it. Even if it's extremely minimal, you could do something. Anything, right? Just fucking move. Just go out there, right? So this was sort of my personal journey that kind of led me to where I am now. Obviously, I am by no means in a position of being perfect. However, what I did was I created habits out of that, and those habits led to changes not just in physical composition, in strength, but also in confidence, in mindset, and the most important of all, discipline. For the last however many years now, I have never gone a single week without training. And there's a fucking reason for that. With the exception of, I guess, the first wave of the lockdowns in 2020, even with those, I still trained at home, right? And at that point, I was nowhere near in the shape that I am now. Okay, but the habits remained, and I just kept showing up. And every time I go to the gym, it's not necessarily every single day of every week that I go in there to kill myself. But the first thing that I make sure I do is that I show up for myself. And a lot of us let ourselves down by not showing up for ourselves. We think like somehow like someone else is going to come and take our fucking hand and walk us through life. That's not how this works. You have to show up for yourself. Whenever you are also in a position in the world in general, this is a very broad aspect of this whole thing, but whenever you're in a position where you are consistently encouraged to sit the fuck down and relax and not do anything, I find that there's usually an incentive for that in the party that's encouraging that behavior. Like the idea of being kind to yourself and everything is great. It's beautiful. I still have to be kind to myself and think that, okay, I did go to the gym. Could I have done better? No, not really. Okay, then so I deserve to be kind to myself. But if I went and then I think I could have done better, but I didn't, then I don't deserve that kindness. Then I need to remember that and make sure next time I go in, I fix that. Okay? And coming back to it, whenever you find yourself in a position where others are encouraging you to do that, there's a variety of reasons behind it. One, which is I think the most common one, is the fact that you're outgrowing their comfort. You make them feel bad for them being a lazy person and not being daring to go through the same thresholds as you are going through. And the other is that there's incentive in it for them, right? So if you want to look at even, I don't want to get too much into the political side of things, but if you want to look at a general society being encouraged to just be lazy and be whatever, then you realize that the incentive for that is more control for the people who are in charge of that same society. It's very simple. It's actually very black and white as far as this particular issue is concerned. The dynamic is fairly obvious, I would say. And yeah, you always gotta think, the more you're out of shape, the more ill you're going to be. The more ill you are, the more you'll feed into a system of pharmaceuticals and healthcare, which unfortunately for a very large part is actually completely broken. And again, that's something that perhaps I might be speaking from anecdotal experience, but it is entirely true in my worldview. And it's that I went to the doctors around the time when I was experiencing those, horrible symptoms and illnesses that just came from being overweight and not fucking moving around and not eating the proper nutrition. Yet, all they did was put me on fucking statins, right? How stupid is that? They put you on fucking medication, or if like something is not working out in your life, here, take all these antidepressants. There's no real treatment of the root cause. And of course, why would they treat the root cause when it would take away their fucking business? Think about it, right? So, again, I'm not saying that there's not value in modern medicine. Of course there fucking is. It wouldn't be a thing if there wasn't, but you would be surprised at how much of it is just based on complete fucking lies and bullshit. And above all, it's designed to make money. It's an industry, right? If it wanted to heal you or fix you, or another thing, these fucking Weight Watchers, how many fucking people have actually done that and kept the weight off? It's all a load of fucking nonsense. It really is, and there's so much conflicting information out there. Like, oh, you should try this fad diet, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that. And then there's, like if you read the government fucking guidelines as to what they're actually telling you to eat, it's all fucking bullshit. And, honestly, and again, you can blame me for saying, oh, you can't just speak on anecdotal experiences like that. But I can. Because I have made the transformation that most people who were in my position 6-7 years ago wouldn't even dream of making. And I know it because I've been there. I know what works. I understand what gets the results. It's really not that difficult. Yes, each person is different to one another, but as far as the basic principles are concerned, it's actually not that different. It's fairly simple. Okay, you got to think that we live in a universe where the laws of that same universe are fairly set. There's not much ways of bending the laws of the universe. There's not much ways of bending the laws of gravity. There's not much ways of bending time. Of course, well, there are, but that's a very different conversation to the one we're having here. And the thing that I want you to focus on is the fact that no one is going to come and take your hand for you and walk you through life. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to better yourself. And guess what? If you don't, that's fine, because the world's going to walk past you anyway. So, with that in mind, I also do want you to consider the fact that a lot of what I'm saying is my own internal dialogue with myself. There were many times where I was very harsh to myself when I was in the gym, especially when I first started, and I would call myself the worst of things, and I still sometimes do, but, all of that helped me get past certain thresholds and limitations that I otherwise probably would have never been able to go out of, because growing is a result of pain. Pain is growth. Suffering is the thing that makes it all worthwhile. So to me, when I wake up in the morning and I jump in a cold bath or have a cold shower or do whatever, I enjoy that, knowing that the horrendous pain that it causes is one that's ultimately beneficial for me. Okay? You got to think of the whole world and the concept of the universe in such a way. There are things that if you don't use them, they atrophy. All right? There's never a constant. You never reach a goal and stay there permanently. The concept of enlightenment even is one that you can fall in and out of. So you have to show up every single fucking day. Even if you don't feel like it, you're going to have to. And that's how you get results. That's how you go anywhere. That's how you make your dreams come true. That's how you bring that vision that's in your mind into reality. And this is how it was for me. I envisioned myself as I am now on stage, looking the way I do now, 5-6 years ago, thinking, you know what? One day I'm going to look like that. I look like that now. And you know what? I'm still not satisfied. But I know I got there. And now that I got there, not only do I know that it's possible to overcome that side of things, but now, through this trial by fire, I understand that anything in life is possible. Anything. You just have to give it the time. And you just have to show up, and you just have to do the thing that, even though it sucks, you're going to do it like you fucking love it. And when you do that, there's nothing anyone else can do or say that's going to stop you. No one else's judgment is going to hinder your performance, because you know to yourself that you're capable of showing up for yourself. You know to yourself the darkness that you've been through that no one else is aware of. Only you understand what you've experienced. And only you know what it takes to come out of that and make your life better. So, with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this episode. And like I said, there's not much notes or anything I've got here. I just wanted to come and talk to you guys man to man, or whatever you are on the other side of this. But jokes aside, yeah, all I want you all to consider is the fact that the real reward is where you have to go through certain degrees of difficulty, and you know what? The most difficult part is actually acknowledging that there's some work that needs to be done. Is actually acknowledging that, hey, you know what? Maybe I need help here. Is actually acknowledging that maybe I don't know better than everyone else. Maybe I should speak to someone who knows better than me. Or maybe I just need to go and sign up for the gym. Or maybe I just need to go start that business. Or maybe I just need to go ask that person out. That's where the reward is. Life is movement, and it's all about action. You can think all you want, but that means nothing unless you're going to do something about it. Okay? And one more thing as well. Nothing pisses me off more than when people come up and they ask me irrelevant questions. Like, they'll see my transformation, and then their first question is, oh, so which supplements are you taking? Seriously, fuck your supplements and go shove them up your ass. No one fucking cares about that. The results come from hard work and putting in the fucking effort. It comes from the part that sucks. It comes from the part that you can't just pay for it with money. You have to fucking work for it. And that's where the results come from. And that's the same relationship that I have with many of my clients as well. It's that they know that hiring me alone is not enough. They have to put in the work themselves. And this is why we get fucking results. Because I don't want to, with all due respect, I don't want to waste my time or the time of someone else who thinks that by throwing money at something, everything is just gonna get fixed. No, you're gonna have to put in the fucking work. My job in that situation is to steer the wheel and tell you exactly what to do. But the action has to come from you. Anyhow, with that out of the way, thank you all for joining me on this one. I just wanted to basically blast some of my thoughts at you and let you know that things can be better. Doesn't matter how shit they are, they can be better. And sometimes accepting that shitness is okay. You know, see where things are now as the rock bottom if necessary, and just try to grow out of it. All right, and don't hold on to the past, whether it's good or bad. There's no point holding on to it, because you are only where you are at now. It doesn't matter if you were a champion fucking 30, 40 years ago. You need to assess yourself by where you are now. And the same applies the other way around as well. You might have been a loser 10, 20 years ago, but see where you are now. Always assess yourself with the present, okay? But you can always learn from the past. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us. I wish you a very happy new year. And yeah, let's fucking go. Let's get our shit into gear, and let's make this a very powerful year, because no one else is going to do it for us. Okay? Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll speak to you all soon.